Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lost Through the Rabbit Hole. Tonight's guest is Dana Louise. Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear
All
you.
right,
Oh,
awesome.
I'm waiting for you to do your thing. Blah, 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 blah. Hi, I'm Dana Louise. Oh, did you
Dana
want me to
is no. I'll keep going. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Dana is an author, an abductee, and you were on a reality TV show. I
Yeah.
definitely want to hear about that. And of course, a Reiki Master, which is awesome. We got to dive into that a little bit too.
You're not gonna like what you hear. No, I don't like. I don't pull punches. Like, anyway, I speak the truth. Anyway, my truth at least.
That's awesome. Everybody needs the truth. Dana, when with being you were an abductee, uh, at what age did that start?
So I was still in my crib, like probably 6 months old, 9 months old. I would say that's the first time became aware of it when I was that little. And then that started to happen regularly and happened through till I was probably about 8 or 10 years old. I wasn't always aware of the encounters, which I'm just going to say to anybody listening, it could happen to you too, and you might not remember. The thing for me was after I had encounters or these visitations, I mean, I wouldn't be aware of it when I was a baby, but when I was older, I knew that I had different physical properties, like I could move energy and electricity, and I didn't fully know all the things that I could do or any of these kinds of things because, like, there was no adult to say, "Oh, now that you've encountered aliens, look at what you can do, Shazam!" I didn't have any of that, so um, so I was changed physiologically for a couple of days, and then it would kind of wear off. So sometimes I would remember the visitation and I'd have these superpowers and knew that would wear off and then I would be like deflated, like, "Mrr." But then many times I didn't recall the evening or what happened the night before, but I had the superpowers again. So I'd be like, "Oh, I must have had a visitation." you know so that went on and
Mhm.
on, for many, many years. And the thing of it is that I think this physicality or whatever happened, me being next to them all these different times, so throughout growing up and throughout my adulthood, very, very strange things would happen. And like I said before, like it would have been nice if there was some adult or some person to say, "Oh, you can do this and you can do that." I've had to explore them, or I figure them out just quite by osmosis. They just kind of happen naturally, because for me, I've tried to downplay the contact that I've had. I've tried to, I what I say is I've hidden in the cosmic closet, because the minute you talk about, especially me, I'm old, and back in the day, like you open up and say ghosts or angels or, ETs or something like that, people, all your credibility falls out, right?
Mhm.
And so, but today, people are changing and they're accepting it more. And so now I'm able to come out with my voice. And what I hope is that other people that might be suspicious that they've had an encounter, or if they don't fully believe that aliens exist, I'm hoping to raise my voice to say, "Hey, no, it's true. We've been all gaslit. We've been gaslit, and it's time to wake up. And it's not so bad." But well, it is. There's some of it is really bad. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I know, like, right? That's part of that rabbit hole. Because once you open up to all of this, you're like, "Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Oh, ooh, damn. Look how far down that goes."
Yeah.
And and I go there, and I didn't want to go there. You know what I mean?
Right. Nobody
Yeah,
talks about the drop-offs in the rabbit hole. They just talk about the fun conspiracies, the UFOs, and then you go like, oh, we're
right.
really, really deep. I don't see the sky anymore.
Right. Well, hey, I don't know about you, but we had the eclipse the other night. What was it, last Tuesday or something like that? And I went out there, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't know, something's been going on, and maybe your listeners, maybe this has happened to you too, but I get the feeling like, and I don't think it's just me, because whenever I talk to my psychic friends or people who are, in this community or something like that, they all go, yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like we've been leveling up. We've been leveling up some, well, I don't want to swear, but some stuff's been going on. We've been kind of, I think we've been leveling up, and this is a good thing. This is the thing that I've been, praying for and hoping for. But that eclipse, man, I saw some crazy stuff going on. It was an amazing night. So anybody else out there, I mean, there's all kinds of retrogrades and all these kinds of heavenly things, but I think something interesting is going on. I think it's going on. So I'm excited about it. So anyway, that's just me.
No, I've been hearing a lot of too about, the year 2027. I don't. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah, I keep hearing this mystical time. Some people are even 2025 and 2027. I'm not sure. But here's the thing. Uh, disclosure, like, okay, the disclosure that needs to happen isn't the type of disclosure that the government's going to go for. You and I, your audience, we're clamoring for the true disclosure about the secret programs that are going on behind the scenes. The rest of the muggles are sitting there going, "Oh, do you think ET's going to take my job?" Well, I'm like, no, you dummy, because guess what? ET needs a certain frequency even to enter the room. So no, they're not going to get your job, sorting at UPS. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. I'm like, whatever. AI is going to take your job.
Yeah, you
No,
need to
not
worry
the,
about AI.
yeah. I'm like, AI is going to take your job faster than ET will. And if people are like, oh, is ET here and stuff like that, it's like, oh my Lanta, they were here before we were here, and we are a little bit of splice of that gene. But it's like, but there's been more of this gaslighting. I mean, like, look at all the the pyramids and all this kind of stuff. Look at ancient art. How can you say? Look at ancient architecture. How can you say the aliens weren't here and helping us? You know what I mean? I'm
Right.
like, it's just
That's you,
very,
and
very frustrating.
there's so many other religions that just talk about like the chariots fighting in the sky. Like,
Well, what do you
what
think
is
that is?
that?
Right.
And
And
the pyramids were kind of like a landing strip too. A lot
and
of them.
Odin, yeah, and Odin had two birds that went out. Would you call those birds a drone? I'm kind of like, he lived in
I
a
also
silver
I also
chair.
like the he carried a spear that didn't have to come back to him when he threw it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that doesn't sound like a rifle.
Yeah, no, I know. I write about all that stuff in my book and stuff like that. I think Christianity is really based on a lot of alien contact. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people are starting to really talk about the Grand Canyon and everything. And I don't know if you've looked at how that looks. It
I
almost looks like terraforming, right? And that big thing that looks like it could be the Sphinx, and you can't legally go down there and start looking because the government will just jump all over you, because apparently there's all these tunnels and caves and all this kind of stuff. And apparently there's a Native American showed somebody some tunnel, and then it was filled with Egyptian stuff, or it looked like Egyptian. So that's when everything got shut down, and now you can't really explore any of that because I think they're hiding the truth again. It's all that, Indiana Jones stuff. They just wrap it up and store it away. And I mean, thank God for some of the architecture and things that we are privy to that they haven't been able to hide. And furthermore, you're in Wisconsin, and guess what? I was just talking about this to somebody the other day. You have pyramids in Wisconsin, right? And nobody
I we
in
also have a Stonehenge in Lake Michigan.
oh, really? In Lake Michigan has a
Mhm.
Stonehenge? Oh my God.
It's on the bottom.
Oh my God, I gotta
Divers,
look that up.
all of these divers have pictures of it, and it looks exactly like the one in Europe, but
Yeah, so
underwater.
So people who don't know, there's a state park in Wisconsin called Astaland, and it's got like this, one of these pyramids that kind of is more of a terraform kind of a look. And then there's like a couple pyramids in a lake or two different lakes or something like that. Some guy, it was like a drought probably during the Dust Bowl era, and his boat ran into the ding dang thing. I mean, I think that's hilarious. But and don't the Aztecs and the Mayan talk about corn coming from the north? Hello. Hello. Anyway, so I mean, that's the disconnect, and it just drives me nuts. It's, such gaslighting, and people are so trained to be like, no, that's not real. They just can't put these disconnects together. It's frightening. It's like zombie
But here's the
apocalypse.
thing, though. When you go talk to that other community, the native community,
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
they're spot on. They know exactly what's going on, and they've
Oh, yeah.
been knowing what's going on. They're like,
Yeah.
them are the moon-eyed people, them are the little ones, them are the
Right. Yeah, they got it going on. That's for sure. That's for sure. So, yeah, I just feel bad for people thinking that aliens need to come and land here and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, it already happened, people. Millions of years ago, billions of years ago. You're a little late. Catch up, and mustard. Anyway, I'm weird. Oh my gosh.
I'll ask you this question. I asked a couple MUFON guests that I've had on. What do you think would have happened in the reality where the U.S. military would have just been like, yeah, something crashed. We took them in. It's at this hospital. Here's our press conference. We're going to try to communicate with them and talk to them and help them back.
Right.
Like, where do you think we'd be right now?
Oh God, I don't know where we would be right now, but I think at the time, because I write about this in my book as well, like my dad, when he was growing up, they had the Orson Welles, Halloween radio program that happened. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And he was reading some play on the air, and it was the night before Halloween or going into Halloween.
If I remember correct, people actually committed suicide over that.
Right. There was like people lost their minds. They went wackadoo. And, my grandma was having a nervous breakdown, and everybody was, all this kind of stuff. So I think that's very close to that time. And maybe that was a psyops to be like, how are people going to react to this? And they saw
honestly,
how people.
Do you think it would have been a different reaction if he would have said that it was the Russians were attacking us over the radio at the same time? We would have had the same results.
No,
as,
everybody still would have lost it.
You know what I mean? There's
Right.
that too. They played it off as it was like an invasion in the country that's never been invaded.
Right. No, I don't think it would have mattered if it was the Russians or the Chinese. I think just that our country was so innocent back then, and the thought that anybody could land into our territory was just like just mind blowing.
I do think it was the psyops. I mean, it's very weird that he hung out with Lovecraft, and they both hung out. Yeah, and they both mentored underneath Crowley.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. Okay. End of subject. I mean, like fact. Put 2 and 2 together. People, did we not go to math? 1 + 1 equals. There you go.
You ever dive in there, Crowley at all?
A little bit, kind of. A lot of like the TV shows that pop up and how he was and who he was and all that kind of stuff. And
you ever see who his imaginary friend was that he got his information from? His name was Abnu. And what he looks like?
No, I can't recall.
He looks like a gray.
He looks like a what?
A gray.
Like a gray?
There's all these paintings that he did of him, and he looks spot on like a gray in a cape, like human eyes.
Okay.
Kind of weird.
Interesting. I'll have to check that one out. That's interesting. I don't know. He just really gives me the creeps, and I try to stay out of his energy. And I know it's very, very, very powerful and everything. But then I've done tarot cards, and the deck that I like to use is based off of Crowley. I don't want to say commanded it, but he asked for that to be created from that artist who did, the tarot cards that most of us use. So the classic ones, the classic one, I
Mhm.
can't remember what it's called. But yeah, he commissioned it. That's the thing. He commissioned it. It was based off of what he told them to do. That particular deck of cards. I don't know if you know that. A little background story on that one. Yeah. Anyway, so of course
He
all of
was
that.
definitely a really odd guy too. If you
Yeah.
dig really into him, he's kind of seemed like a cult nerd. That's
Well, yeah, right. But they were doing all this sex stuff, sex magic and everything like that. And, hey, sex magic is real. I mean, magic, when you put your emotion into it, it can be very powerful,
Mhm.
and that is the truth. And that's why people have to be very, very careful, playing around with that stuff, because it's not a joke. And if you're doing it just for shits and giggles and you don't know what you're doing, yeah, you can be in a lot of trouble. So, yeah. But
Right.
anyway, well, I didn't know he was that. But anyway, back to your question. I don't know what would have gone on, but I'm thinking that they just didn't really think that our society was ready for that. And I believe that is true as well. And that's why we have TV programming now, because isn't it amazing, like how far we've gone from the 1950s, to today's date, how awake people are and accepting of it all. You know what I mean? I don't think
Mhm.
anybody would really give a rat's patootie to see a great alien and be like, oh, it's a great alien. Okay, well, whatever. I mean, I think there's just so much fluoride in the water these days that people are just so numb to everything. I literally think there's like a zombie apocalypse that's about to
I hear
happen.
you.
No, and I
It's
think it's
already
good.
it's happened.
Well,
Look
I think
around at
I
everybody.
if you go driving, I swear to God, I'm like, am I in a swarm? Like, what's going on here? Like, this is really weird. Like, people drive differently. It's very, very different out there. But I'm going to tell you, and I've talked about this earlier too with other people, because when we're watching TV and it's called programming and they're casting, right? Anyway,
Mhm.
and you're in a your conscious mind is, relaxed, your subconscious is coming forward, and that's you're really ready for a hypnotic suggestion. And so part of I feel that that is setting up a whole Manchurian candidate thing. I even feel like some of these shooters or something like that might have gotten some trigger, some word that set them off, and boom, and they go and do the deed. But
Sleeper
when we
spies.
right. But yeah, well, and those guys, well, that's a whole nother story. We can't even get into it. But I just kind of feel like, because a lot of these aliens do work on a frequency level, that they do work as a walk-in kind of to some humans. I call it like a mantle. Like, if you want to talk about, the queen or the pope and all that kind of stuff, I call it the mantle, and it's a frequency walk-in. But I think that they're actually trying to do that
You
to
mean
the
like
rest of
almost
us.
like a possession?
What's that? Yes, it's like a
Almost like
possession. It's like a possession, because it's like a one away. Like, the human is there, the human body and that human soul, because these people, especially in entertainment and politics and stuff like that, and religion, the higher ups, they have to take on this mantle in order to be in league with the other entities, and maybe just even for them to do the ceremonies that they're required to do, they need to take on what I call, again, the mantle, a walk-in of these entities, and that the entity takes over, and they can shapeshift the human body.
I
Um, but there is an actual true form as these entities that we are not naming right now, but then that they do have to take a walk-in thing. And I'm going to tell you that if you look at the presidents, not the last couple, because they already were gray haired, but if you look at the presidents and you go in about 6 weeks, maybe 3 months, but right after their inauguration, they go gray. Because I mean, like, it's kind of like the movie Poltergeist, where the mom, she has such a shock, she goes gray.
Mhm.
That is a true thing that happens. You can become gray overnight through shock. And I think that most of these people up until recently had no idea about this agenda, that there are um, different races that are actually in charge of our planet right now. And so they are exposed to that. But not only that, I think then they are told, you have to take on the mantle. And so then they have this walk in. I literally took a picture of George Bush, when he was giving a speech immediately after 9/11. So it was when we had the 9/11 20th anniversary. So that was a couple of years ago. I was just watching TV and they were replaying his speech, and all of a sudden I saw him shapeshift Bush. So I stopped the TV, I took the picture, and I think a lot of people, if you're quick enough and you're aware or thinking of it that it could happen, you can see this on the TV quite
I feel like
frequently.
I feel like back then too, we used to watch. My friends in high school, we would watch because the whole reptilian phenomenon was new, and David Icke was talking about it for the first time then, and we were finding them clips and finding news reporters and finding, and now it's really hard. Like all them videos seem to just be scrubbed.
Right. Right. And that's why I don't think that they knew, whoever posted that video. I don't think they realized that he was shape-shifting during it, but it literally is. And I think it's pretty clean. So you could probably go find it. It's Bush talking about back in the day about 9/11. But then, like I said, it was during a 20th anniversary speech. They were replaying it, and I'm like, "Oh my god." So I got a clean picture, meaning I didn't take it from somewhere else, because then the powers that be can track it, like if I got it from Google, that would be trackable, and they, know that I took the picture and that I was using it. This is right off of my phone, so it's pretty clean. So when I post it to like Facebook, it's not tagged or shadow banned, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not being traced, but and certainly I've been tracked. I have been tracked for many, many years. My phone's, bugged and all this kind of stuff. And just for people to know, I do have receipts with all this stuff with the entities. Um, my dad died in 2010, and this last February, my book came out, not this April, but the April before, so April of 2023. And so just this last February, a man called me up very strangely, out of the blue. Don't hang up. I'm not trying to sell you anything. But he had a file on my dad, and it was a classified file. So it's CIA papers about my dad being at Wrights Patterson. My dad actually worked on the supercomputer, transformed the supercomputer, all this kind of stuff. So it was just such a confirmation for me that not only there was a little girl in my neighborhood that can confirm about the aliens coming and visiting my house. Um, I have I had a microchip come out of the back of my neck that was witnessed by another neighbor. I have this name tag from when I was actually 10 years old. I was taken to the Rochester airport, and the spirit told me, like, keep this name tag. So I kept it all these years. And how many name tags have the date and the place on them and a number and all that kind of stuff? I think that's kind of crazy.
Right.
Trying to get this good so you can kind of see it or read it, whatever.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So I was in elementary school, and my parents took me out and drove me down to the Rochester airport, and we walked out to the tarmac. As you can see on there, it says special guest Dana. And Air Force One rolls up, out pops the president and the, first lady, Pat Nixon, and she walks up to me and hands me a long stem red rose. I'm like the only kid there and all this kind of stuff. And some people are like, "Oh, you made that up." And I'm like, "Oh, like I made up a name tag." And I'm like, the media were there. I got interviewed. I was on the radio, which was cool. But when I was writing my book, all of a sudden I got suspicious about the whole event. I really wasn't tracking and putting two and two together that it could have been a symbolic Mason thing giving me the red rose. But then the spirit told me, look up the presidential diary. I'm like, what's a presidential diary? So I'm online and I'm researching. And sure enough, I look up Richard Nixon. You can go online. You can do this yourself. And it talked about that day and the flights that day. And so I looked, and so the incoming flight and the flights during that day, Pat Nixon's not on there. I'm going to show you. I printed it up. This is the itinerary. And the secretary of the day had to type, they put everybody who's on here. So the number one person is the president. And then I think like Rumsfeld, well, not Rumsfeld. I don't know. Who are these people? Well, they're very famous. Like, yeah, Rumsfeld. Who else? Anyway, so all these people, there's like 32 people or something like that, but not Pat Nixon. So isn't it interesting that I got a long stem rose, which is an Illuminati Mason kind of thing, sub rosa, and she's not on the flight. So if the flight went down, nobody be looking for her. And I'm like, that's kind of mystical or magical. I think it's kind of weird. She should be legally on these flights, on this manifest, and she's not. And here she is handing out to me a red rose. I don't know. So anyway, I got a lot of weird things, but it's true. And I think at that point was when I stopped being visited by the Greys, and that's when I think other entities started to visit me. And that was the point of time just about when I started to be on the super space program. I think they courted me because I remember being out in my front yard, watching the ships, watching the sky open up, very much like in that Marvel's The Avengers, where the sky opens up. That's the real deal, man. That's how it happens, that the sky opens, and then there's a portal and the ships come through. But I've been other people, I hear everybody talking about the super space program, but I've been involved in a water program and a land program. So I'm land, sea, and air. It's like they run different missions on rivers. Well, certainly, they go into the ocean, all these kinds of things, and probably lakes. So there's a super land program and there's a super water program. It's just not super space. And I'm like, I don't know if anybody else is really talking about that, being involved and working it, because I feel like I should have a pension. All the work that I did. I'm like, dude, you guys, and that's the thing. They use kids. It's slave labor. They use children without their permission. And I know that sounds really crazy. And I never really connected that that's what was going on until here now I'm an adult and all of us are raising our voices and telling our stories. That's how we're piecing it together. So that's how, thank you for people such as yourself to host people such as me, and we get our voices out there, and then your listeners can be like, oh, that happened to me too. Oh, that happened to me too. And this way we all get to do this, because we can only save ourselves. No one's coming to save us, and the government's not going to tell us anything. But if we rise up and we wake up and we tell our stories, what are they going to do? Right?
Right.
But they're using children. And that movie, Ender's Game, I mean, that's the kind of crap that they're doing, and, because by the time you're 18 or in your 30s, you're a little more belligerent and less teachable. But an 8-year-old's going to pick something up and just run with it. Like, yeah, it's second nature. I mean, if you've ever played, Nintendo with a kid that started at the age of, or a person at the age of 18 versus somebody that started when they were 6 or 7. I mean, that 7-year-old will kick your butt all day long, right?
Right.
It's just like second nature to them. So they're extorting that. They're extorting us, and I didn't realize it. I didn't know what was going on. But yeah, and I don't know how much that program's still going on. It seemed to cool down quite a bit. But just for me, that just might be my participation in it. So I think it's gearing up in other ways, in other realms. But anyway, I'm sure you've had other people talking about it.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what else did you want to know or talk about?
Why do you think the Greys stopped visiting?
Visiting me, I think they just, I don't know. Maybe this other group took over. I don't know. And maybe I kind of feel like some decision making was going on in the background because, all right, at my dad's funeral in 2010, my dad was an electrical engineer. And as you know, through classified papers, I've learned that he was talking to NASA, working with NASA, was at Wright-Patterson, which means he reverse engineered part of the crew that reverse engineered the Roswell crash. Because it is told or suspected in lore that the spaceship was brought to Wright-Patterson and then they reverse engineered it. Because when I got at my dad's funeral, some guy came up to my sister and I, and he's like, I don't know why they fired your dad. He is the one that transformed the supercomputer. And I looked at my sister and I'm like, see, I told you, because, I'm like, I told you that I was being traded for alien technology. And, she's always like, no, whatever. But so in the CIA file, because I went to a MUFON meeting to ask the old farts, I'm like, do you guys know what this is? And they're like, yeah, that's part of the supercomputer. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know. But this was in my dad's file. So anyway, my whole growing up, my dad always said that he quit. And at my dad's funeral, the guy said, no, he was fired. But now I'm, this many years later, and I've written my book. And so now I'm kind of opening up to listening to some other people's stories, because I've always kind of sequestered myself to keep my own story pure and not infiltrated with other people's words and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, because about the same time that I was given the rose, that the Greys stopped visiting me, that I think these other two entities, and I have a picture I can show you, started to visit me, and I didn't remember them. But anyway, I think my dad, it's a long story and there's a lot we can't get into right now, but I think I was being set up to go to Montauk, what some people call Montauk, or a different program that they were doing to children. And I think at that point, my dad said, no, you've had enough. Like, I've been willing to do this much, but no. So I think in essence, the truth is he did quit. He did get fired. I think because he was like, no more with my daughter, which is why I'm going to say that I think I was being enticed by the super space program, because then I volunteered, right? Because as I said earlier, just a minute ago, I was out standing in the front yard when this all started to happen. So I think that's the enticement. And then after that, it wasn't, I didn't do that very many times. And then the next thing you know, I'm on the ships. I'm at the bay doors. I'm doing things up there and stuff like that. So I think all of that was kind of like a story of, some negotiations and stuff like that. And I didn't think I was going to be writing a second book, but everybody says I'm going to be writing a second book. So I think a lot of this stuff, all this stuff with this file with my dad and me just kind of going back now and having more memories pop up about what happened to me or certain circumstances. Yeah, it all kind of plays together. But, it's just really, to me, calming, because it's like, yeah, Dana, this stuff did happen and it's real. And you were traded and you had these entities and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. And I'm going to show you so these guys came one night when I was probably in my 40s or something like that, with my husband downstairs, and we were sleeping. So these creatures came in, and they look like a little log, like a stump. Like they're about as high as my knee. And see if you can see, there's a lineup, and they're coming in the room and they're trudging. There's a lineup above them. And see, there's like not really any feet. It's kind of like ET, like no feet. And the arms are like really nothing. And these guys can shapeshift. So they came into the room. One night, and so the one who's talking, it looks very angry and scary. They're like, oh, are we scaring you? And I'm like, yeah. And so then they shapeshifted, and I'm like, I still don't care, you creeps, whatever. I hate you. Anyway. And then, so I was upside down on the bed. My husband was in the natural sleeping position. And then I look at my feet. So, here's my little tootsies. Wait, I'm so backwards. Wait a minute. Which hand? This hand is where my husband's sleeping in the natural position. Here's me. I'm upside down. And I look up, these other guys are walking in the room, and here comes this guy, tall, skinny guy. And he's wearing a Speedo. I'm sorry. It's kind of doing this backwards. He's wearing a black Speedo, tall, skinny guy. His hips are probably about this big around, real skinny, long. Ugh. And then it was like, I was watching, Close Encounters for like the millionth time. And all of a sudden I'm like, dude, that's the guy, Jack Skeleton. Mm-hmm. And Close Encounters, there are these tall, really skinny guys like that. I'm like, there's more disclosure. So I think right about the time the Greys stopped visiting me, this guy, and I don't know if his crew was with him the whole time, but Whitley Strieber kind of had some similar guys that he encountered. And like I said, they shapeshift. So he saw them a little bit differently, which makes sense. But I do believe that Hollywood has been trying to show them to us. Also, that movie, like Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Whatever Children or something like that, they had the tall, skinny guys, even though they're more like evil kind of stuff. Um, anyway, so I think right about that time it was like, okay, gray aliens, these guys are taking over as far as dealing with me. So, and I like I said, I didn't realize it until, because when I was about that age, about third grade, I started making these drawings like a stick figure, but I'd make long circular arms kind of spiraling. And then I'd kind of sit back and I'd laugh and I'd rock a little bit, kind of like a trauma response. And I wouldn't know why I was doing it. I didn't know why I kept drawing this drawing. And I didn't know why I would just sit back and look at it. And I was kind of disturbed by it. Um, but that had to be. I had no recollection at the time of these encounters with these new species. It wasn't until I was older that I was awake. And they stole my DNA and my husband's DNA that night. So that's no bueno, because, and I try not to think about that, because it's like, especially if you're a parent, to think about your child, and what I'm trying to say is like, they have my husband's DNA, they have my DNA, they can make how many children or clones or whatever. And that little entity that shapeshifted, I'm like, she's like, "Are you afraid?" La la la. And I'm like, "Why are you here?" And she said, "We're here to help your planet, to help save your planet." So that says to me that they were off world, that they were not from Earth,
Mhm.
and they're here to save our planet. I'm like, "How? But you're stealing my DNA, you're stealing my children." And to help our planet, like what we need help. And there's some people that say maybe the grays are humans from the future, that something does happen to our sun, because wouldn't you kind of end up looking like that if something happened to our sun? Our skin would turn gray, maybe eyes would develop large. I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's you know
Right.
and when I say gray alien, it's kind of like a lot of people are like, "Well, you say gray alien looks like this." I'm like, "Hey, people, here's the thing. Saying gray is like saying dog. We got
Right.
Great Danes, we got Chihuahuas, and who and where they come from and all this kind of stuff. If you have a better argument than me, I'm not dying on this hill. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to listen to your story too, because it can all be true. It doesn't, not
Right.
anything's
What's up
set
at
in
night?
stone.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of stars. There's a lot up there.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm like, we can both be right, okay? It's okay, I'm not gonna die on like, oh, I'm right because I've seen them. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I encountered, I'm to be fair. How was that? All I can tell you is how I felt in that moment and what I saw. What it is, I can't really tell you, I have suspicions, but I'm always open to hearing other people's arguments, because that might click. That might click for me and be like, oh, that's a little closer. Like when you go to the eye doctor and they're like A, B, and it's like, it's so annoying. I can't tell which one's better. I'm like, they're both good. Okay. La, la, la,
I was
it's
getting
kind of that
anxiety. I'm
thing.
like, what if I pick wrong? Then I applied for like an entire year.
I know. I know. Like, oh my God, I should have said, oh, that one's better. I don't know. Anyway, but I mean, so everybody that's like, oh, it's this way or that way, I'm like, it's every way. I mean, I'm just yeah, and I think like these benevolent one, everybody wants like the Star Trek stuff and everything. And that's all good. But the benevolent ones, the ones that everybody wants to be with or whatever, they live on a different frequency. Everything
Mhm.
is frequency, okay? And they have to be in a certain atmosphere, a certain frequency. When we go into the ocean, we have to bring an atmosphere with us so that we can live. My feeling is that the grays that I was with when I encountered them had a certain frequency around us. Now, to be fair, I don't know if that frequency was made or brought with to knock us out, knock humans out. could be, or maybe that frequency just knocks us out anyway. I'm not sure, but it just seemed like the room was always had a different vibrational energy. And I do believe that the benevolent ones, because we are on a dense planet, this is 3D dense. We're dense. If you don't know, go out there driving, you'll figure out everybody's we're dense. And it's very difficult to be this dense, right? It's hard to be dense and corporeal like a rock, So these benevolent ones, they're light beings. They're not going to come here and get a job at Subway. That's just not in their plan. That's not what they want. They don't really care. And for the most part, we think we're pretty special as humans, but I'd like to consider us as earthworms, that we're pretty much benighted, like a worm underneath in the ground, does not know about Doritos or football or going to work. Well, maybe they go to work. I'm like, they have a job, don't they? But they don't know about Pokemon or anything like that. And so doesn't nature show us kind of the same similar things over and over again? So can't we humans be just as benighted to what's going on around us? We see less than 1% of the spectrum of light. We've got blinkers on, and it's for a reason, to keep us sane, for one, but we're just on a different level, on a different plane. So these benighted ones that everybody wants to deal with, I don't think it can happen, because it's like, I can't live with a whale. I don't eat what the whales eat. I have an opposable thumb. I can't swim like them. I can't really communicate with them. We're just different species. And I think we are fodder to many species. We're cattle. We think we're something special. And I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry, human beings, we're cattle. And many other entities see us that way. We, like that gerbil that's in a cage in your kid's room, that's how they see us. They don't really give a patootie. We are just another species. So that's how I think about it. We're not that special.
Right.
Anyway, sad but
I
true.
think that's what everybody who's really religious is worried about too. They're finding out that, oh no, we're not the chosen species. There's a bunch of different cousins and brothers and
Right.
sisters.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole damn
We're not
family
the
out there.
favorite, right?
Well, I mean, we are part of, I believe us humans are part of the divine spark. I think that's why we're so interesting and entertaining to others, because we can create. We are creators, and other ones do not have the capacity that we have, or the connection to divine source. I'm kind of that person, to divine source energy. They don't have it. That's why they need us. And that's why Crowley would do sex magic, because that's bringing in that, opening that portal of creativity, of life. That's a miracle, and not everybody can do all of that. So it's very magical, very powerful. And I think a lot of people, like such as Christians, it's always very upsetting. They'll sit there and they'll say, well, I'll pray, but they really don't think their prayer is going to do anything. I'm like, so why do you even do it if you don't believe in it? You're just doing it like, because
Well,
that's what
I
they're
think
told to do.
I honestly think that's part of the conditioning in the system,
Yeah.
and we know manifestation works. So I mean, if people are taught at a young age that like we pray because it's the right thing to do, but don't expect an outcome,
Right.
there's so much to stack against us. Like
Right.
it's wild.
But then they can control us because we have no power. If we
Right.
connected with our power again, they wouldn't be able to control us, and this game would be up. That's when the house of cards falls down. That's when the disclosure comes forward. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what you're trying to do. We're trying to raise our voices for that, because then we will have our powers back. That's why there was a meme not too long ago about yoga being evil. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but maybe some of your listeners did or follow. But anyway, so the joke is that when England invaded India, there were yogi masters, and they're sitting there, meditating on their navel, and they could give a rat's patootie about these British soldiers that have, like a hard on to have war and controlling everybody. They're like, what is your problem? What? So then the British had to say, well, then this is evil because they had to control him. The Indian population didn't need to be controlled. They're like, they didn't care. They were
Yeah.
at a different level. So then the British had to like, okay, well then yogis, yoga is evil and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of how that all went down. I'm not explaining it very well, but so then that was kind of a joke recently. It's coming back again. And I'm like, dude, I know history. I know what happened. That's so dumb. Like, why are we going here? It's not evil, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, they're connecting to the divine spark. And so then that's the powers that be. They just keep taking our powers away, to the point where here's a Christian who, if you believe this story from this guy, this Nazareth guy, he was saying, as I can do, so can you also. Well, what happened to that story? Because now you got little, Molly down here at the end of the block who doesn't believe that her divinity, her spark, or her power of prayer even works. Like, that's how bad it is. It's terrible. So
I love the
anyway.
parts where you get into the crusade and you're like, oh wow, they got
Oh.
their ass kicked, so they took in the pagans, and now we have Christmas.
I know, right? I know. And the Christians can't, they like everything, every holiday they have has been stolen, so it's like, whatever. They don't have an original thought. Anyway. Well, yeah, I digress. But anyway, so there's that. Oh, well, what else did you want to talk about?
I guess we have a couple people in. Is there any questions for her or me? And hey, Tony, and hey, Wayne. Thanks for being here, guys. I did have a question for you. Do you think
Yeah.
your father was involved in uh, the Masons or the Jesuits?
No, nope, 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 nope. He wasn't. And I do remember, and here's a clue, because my dad back in the day had a Heiney, which is I don't know if you know what a Heiney is. It's a very tight haircut back in the 50s. Let's see where's the dudes with the super hair, that supercomputer thing? Well, actually, there's a picture of my dad. He's got a Heiney. Oh, from back in the day. Hang on a minute. Let's see if I can get a picture. But so, yeah, no, my dad, I think he just got involved in way over his head and didn't know this. Okay, here. Oh, nope. Growing out the Heiney at this point. Hang on a minute. Okay, here's a Heiney.
Okay, yeah.
That's a Heiney. That's a military haircut, right? But my dad said,
Yeah.
yeah, my dad said, a Heiney isn't a haircut, it's an attitude. And I think there was probably a point in time where he might have started to running into the whole Nazi regime. Because I guarantee you, if you're at Wrights-Patterson and you're reverse engineering the Roswell spacecraft, the Nazis are going to be there, right? And I think he was kind of like, "Urgh." So no, my dad was brought up Methodist. He was just like bumbling along in life, that kind of thing. If he did anything, he was out taking cooking lessons, chef lessons, and stuff like that. But he was not a wizard of any form or a Mason or connected to, any of these other, like the Shriners or any of that. No, nope. Nope. I think what happened was he might have encountered something when he was in the Korean War. And I think this is kind of how maybe he
You got
stumbled
brought
into
into
it.
the computer.
Yeah, all that kind of
The
stuff.
military probably saw potential.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think so. And then for me, because my grandmother, his mother, had the gift, because a lot of my talking with the entities or any aliens, it's telepathic, and so
Mhm.
I think they are picking up people who would have that capacity to be able to use telepathy, because we all can do it. Everybody can do it. Everything I can do, you can do also. And isn't that what Jesus said? Okay, it's true. But the thing is, I can't run like a marathon like an Olympian. They trained to do it. Some have a natural talent for these things. I don't. Can I run? Yes. Would you laugh if you saw me run? Yes. But can I do it? 100%. So I think that's with everything. I think people have all these gifts. Some just have a better talent. Some need to develop it a little bit more. But, Everybody's got some kind of special sauce in their lives.
I agree with you too on that
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, my dad was not involved in any of that kind of stuff because I know what you're thinking. But I'm sure they probably would have loved me to, who know, go down that rabbit hole or whatever. I do feel like they were trying to entice me into different programs, but I'm Bugs Bunny. And I'm like, I'm
What do you
I'm too
think?
quick. What's that?
What do you think the red rose symbolized?
The what? Oh, the red rose? Well, that's called sub rosa. So when you go into like if you go even into most of the Tudor houses back in England or a lot of the Masonic temples, they have a rose and they put it like on their ceilings. So that just means when you enter those rooms or you see this rose, the Tudor rose, they call it in England, but when you see it in the Masonic temples, that means sub rosa means under this rose, everything in this room is secret. It's a secret. So this long stem red rose, other people have other ideas of what it means, some good, some bad. I think that was just a token of their appreciation for my participation in the supercomputer program and all that kind of stuff as a child. So I don't know how else to take it, right?
Right?
I mean, I didn't ever think of it, but the fact that my voice said to me all the way back then in 1970, hang on to this name tag. And I'm like, why? Like, why is it so important? I'm just a little girl. What do I care about a stupid piece of paper, right? But here, all these decades later, it's it's a receipt for me. It's a receipt. Like,
Right?
dude, this happened, and then to get a file about my dad,
Right?
crazy. And even my husband's a total muggle, total normie. Um, uh, and he doesn't know he's an abductee because I've never told him, yeah, you know what? The Greys were here last night or whatever. Anyway, so even he, when I got the file, was like, okay, like he had to admit, like, okay, this is weird. Like, this is a bit over the top. And I'm like, thank you. So he's on board a little bit more now, just kind of understanding. He stays away, he stays out of it, but I think he's kind of like, all right, maybe Dana isn't such a wackadoo after all, because I never told him, I would never tell him we were dating. Are you kidding me? Like, hey, how do you explain that to somebody? Even I was trying to deny it and in a state of suppression. So anyway, wow. And now here we are, and now I'm doing podcasts talking about it. So anyway, that's how that is. Anyway, Napoleon. Oh my gosh. So what else? Any other questions?
Yeah, one last one. I guess I'll kind of bring it up. Your book is called This is going to be This
This
is
is
going
gonna
to sound
sound
weird.
weird.
Uh,
Yeah, this is gonna sound
what
weird.
made you what made you write that? And why pick that title?
Well, the thing is, I couldn't think of anything. Like normally for me, like something will pop up, like, you know, something will pop up and it'll just stick. La, la, la. I couldn't come up with anything. And so a friend of mine, she kept saying, how about just this is gonna sound weird. Like how you're talking to somebody, you're like, hey, this is gonna sound weird. You know how you always preface the conversation when you're about to bring up aliens. This is gonna sound weird or something like that. So I'm like, okay, that's perfect because it's conversational. And the way I wrote the book is very conversational. I wanted the reader to be, well, I wanted to write this for my descendants because my sons, they're older and but they've never heard all my stories, nor would they really pay attention to my stories because I'm their mom, right? Blah blah, here she goes again, whatever. And then they don't know
Oh, I
all the
know.
stories, you know what I mean? Because it's your mom, like, right. And they've experienced a lot of these things with me. But anyway, so it's like I need to do this for, my grandchildren because my grandchildren probably, I don't know if I'll ever have an adult conversation with them. They're not even born yet. My sons don't even have wives or anything, So I'm like, I need to leave this for my descendants. I mean, I've had people telling me you're supposed to write a book, like readers and stuff like that. My whole life, I'm like, a book about what? I was in such denial about the aliens And so then they were like, okay, it's fine, you write it for your descendants, but you need to write it for the rest of the world. And it was hard for me to accept that as well. But then I'm like, service to others, service to man, that's why we're here. And I'm of that age. And I'm like, it would be wrong of me. It would be a sin of me to have all these experiences and know what I know, what I've learned, and not to share them. Because now I'm at the point of it's a prison break. I'm like, I'm trying to wake other people up. Like, come on, like the house is on fire. Like, here we got to do this. And I wasn't going to do any energy exercises, but then Spirit said, nope, this is your one shot. You got to do this. So I put some energy exercises in the back of the book, things that I've either learned, paid for, or found for free or whatever. But they're just a fun way for people to connect with their divinity. Some of them are like art projects, this or that, but it's for little Molly down the end of the block who doesn't believe that her prayer does anything. My energy exercises will shock you and wake you up, and to know, to call you into playing with this realm, with these energies, with your divinity, and help you to manifest. But also, like I said, it's a prison break, because the more of us that wake up, the less power that they have. So anyway, the book's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And, if you do purchase the book and you enjoy it, please leave me a review, because, they shadow ban you a lot and then try to, suppress, this community. They really do try to, suppress this community. It's shocking. And I don't think people would believe it. Like the stuff that goes on. It's crazy. It's like a whole nother book.
I've kicked the beehive a little too hard a couple of times, and it's pretty amazing how fast you can just disappear off every platform and just be gone. And, yeah,
I know, right? I know. I'm like, who, and so that just says to me, because like my son, when I first came out with the book, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And my youngest is like, well, Mom, you got to get a YouTube channel. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you got to make videos. I'm like, what? But then I'm like, well, what if I get suppressed, like with David Icke or something? Like, what if I get shut down? He goes, consider it a badge of honor. I'm like, okay, like it's a badge of honor. All right. Because that means we're doing something. They don't like it, So we just have to keep going. We can't get frustrated and stop. That's what they want us to do. They want us to get frustrated and stop. And we have to be as stubborn as we always are, and just keep on stupidly going. Like, all right, well, I think we are a determined crowd, and I think the people who are real, the people that are real, that really want to help, we're determined, and we just keep going. Do I want to quit every other day? Yeah. Because I don't make any money. I'm not making any money. I actually started a GoFundMe because I'm like, I need a new laptop. I tried to do this, what is it? Whatever streaming, and they only let me do to Facebook, and now they're extorting me for money if I want to stream to Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, it's so if
you might need to look into another program. Who do you use?
Oh, it was StreamYard. I think StreamYard. Yeah, they're like, oh, because I tried to do this yesterday, and I was like gonna do Facebook and X, and which is Twitter and YouTube and Twitch, and all this stuff, because they're like letting me click all this. I'm like, great. So then I go to the live stream, and they're like, no, hey, if you want to do all of these platforms, you got give us money. And I'm like, I'm going live right now. I can't be signing up for all this. So I just, I'm like, well, that was an epic fail on my part, but that's on me. But they should have warned me when I was clicking. No,
that's on them. They're like holding you hostage.
Yeah, they are. I know. So I don't know.
I use their competitor. I use Streamlabs to check them out.
Okay. So do you have to pay? Are you paying money every month or?
Yeah, if they have one that you don't, and it's pretty easy to use to get to Facebook and everything.
How many platforms can you go to?
All of them.
Oh, really? Okay. We'll talk later.
There's also a way to get on. Stuff. Okay.
What's that? Yeah, we'll talk. We need to talk aliens now.
Yeah.
That's why your people are here. Yeah. But anyway, so you were talking of before, because like Reiki Master Teacher, all right? Because I know you brought that up earlier. Hang on a second. And the reason why I was being kind of silly about it is I took the classes and did everything because I wanted to learn about it, because they were teaching modalities with energy, right? And this is back in the early 90s when I did this, and nobody was like doing energy classes. I'm like, okay, cool. So, but I just want to say to everybody who's listening, for me personally, it wasn't that long afterwards. Now, the Reiki protocol, this, that, and the other thing, and how you set it up and do it, it's all very lovely to learn. But this frequency of Reiki, like the attunement, I'm not so sure if I trust it. I'm not so sure of its source. What I'm more sure about is people using their own divinity, their own connection to God. So, I mean, some people are like get impressed that, oh, you're a Reiki Master Teacher or something like that. I'm just gonna say, hey, if that's something you want to do, maybe take a Reiki class, because they can show you how to open the energies, close the energies with a room, all this kind of stuff. But as far as having to do it, I feel like your own divinity, your own connection, your own energies is way better than having something, a different attunement put into your chakra system and stuff. I'm just really hesitant about that. Because I'm not quite sure about who's attuning what and what are they attuning and what's going in and all that. I don't trust all of it. I'm telling you all, trust yourself more, and you're just fine. You don't need this attunement. You can call it the art of healing. You could call it whatever you want. Just, do you, so Reiki, yeah, do you. Isn't that terrible? I know. Like, it's a prison break. Yeah. The rules are over with. Okay, everybody? It's over with. It's time to go, kids. Let's pick up and go. Let's run. Let's do it. But yeah, don't this whole Reiki stuff. Call it something else. Call it your own thing. Be creative. Do you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's my suggestion. Because I think things have moved on. For me, the real work, it's kind of like Bewitched. You know how it's like beep, 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 beep. I'm not all about, oh, it's got to be laborious. It's got to take time. It's got to be all these things and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. We're moving much faster. We're moving more at a quantum pace these days. So I'm sticking to it. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Anyway.
One other last thing I wanted to ask you about, because it was on your bio, is you were on a TV show and a finalist.
Yeah. Well, I can't really say the truth about what but the reality TV isn't exactly reality in TV. So yes. Anyway, yes, I was a finalist on a reality show in Norway. And seeing, this is more about manifesting again, too. I kind of just fell into that. And I knew going into it that I would win and all this kind of stuff. And, and how things would play out. And so I was able to navigate through knowing, through wisdom. And yeah, I got to the end of the show, and it was wonderful, very magical, because I didn't understand that so it's about a bunch of Americans, this reality show. It's called For Norge, and they take a bunch of Americans who'd never been to Norway, take them to Norway, and make them do a bunch of silly competitions, and everybody's whittled down until there's just like the last two finalists. And but some people get to see the home of their ancestors, and I was one of the lucky people. Not everybody gets that, and I was one of the lucky people to have that opportunity. And it was very magical. I mean, it was like my great grandmother was channeling right with me. I think she was with me the whole time, the whole trip. So it was almost as if she got to go back to her country and was using like my eyes to see things through and enjoying things. It was beautiful. There was some crazy things like, okay, I'm going to tell you this. So I'm writing the book. I'm writing the book and I'm going over the scene when I'm there going to visit my great grandmother's home. Um, and I'm in a car and the staff leaves, like the producer and the engineer, sound guy and camera guy, and I'm in the car all by myself, and they leave the radio on and they put on a very sad channel. It was hilarious. I'm like, oh, you guys are just trying to whip it up like my emotions, because normally we'd be listening to rock and roll or something like that, and this very moving music. I'm like, oh, what is this song? And I didn't know what the song was. I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. So I took my camera and I took a picture of the dashboard of the car. Okay. And I'm like, oh, and the song was basically describing me. It's like, oh, her long hair and the wind and all this kind of stuff. So, okay. So fast forward, a couple of years later, I'm writing the book and I go and I have the picture and I bring up the picture. I'm like, what? And I'm looking at it. And the name of the song is Girl from the North Country. And I'm like, that's what they called me on the show. Like I was from the girl from the North Country, because I was, my family's from above the Arctic Circle. And so I'm kind of researching the girl who's singing it. She's Norwegian. She's singing the song. And guess who wrote the song? This was Bob Dylan's song, Girl from the North Country. And I'm like, oh my God, because Bob Dylan's from Minnesota and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it was just all these crazy, wacky things. Here I am in a car in Norway, and I don't know it's Bob Dylan's song. Bob Dylan's from Minnesota, and it's playing. And literally the song is describing me in the car. And then I open the car door, and on the ground is a kroner. Kroner is their money. And if you've ever gone to like Europe, they don't use money a lot of times. So having a coin right there when I opened up the car door was basically like a miracle. And I think of coins as always like signals from, just signals from spirit. And some people think
Right.
it's from a loved one or something like that. But literally going to this property, even going there like the day before, it took like a 12-hour drive in the car. And I didn't know how long we were going to be in the car. And God, we've been in there for hours, blah, blah, blah. And at one point I just was like, oh, that church over there, that looks like a church that my great grandmother would have attended or something. And there's a million churches, it's like Wisconsin with liquor stores and churches. There's a million liquor stores and churches, right? They're everywhere and they're right next to each other. So it's just basically like that. And then when we got to the hotel, it was the next morning, the producers said, hey, when you were talking about that church, I'm like, yeah. They go, that was your great grandmother's church. I'm like, really? And they're like, we just about crapped their pants, because they were like, how did you pick out that church out of all these churches? Oh my God. Like they were, because they knew that I was mystical, magical, but that was like shocking to them. And then they said, oh, but we're not going to go past there, so you're not going to see it again. We're so sorry. And then I wanted to like write it down on a piece of paper, but I didn't want to tempt the fates, because I'm like, oh, you don't even know me. I'm like, we're going to be going back past the church, believe me. So we're driving to try to get to my family's property, and we're driving. And then all of a sudden the producer turns around. She goes, when I told you we weren't going to be going past your church? Well, we're lost. So we're going to be going back past your church. And I was like, I told you so, but anyway, so yeah. And there's just so much in the book about like in that chapter, like miracle after miracle when I was there in Norway. It was just such a blessing, an unbelievable opportunity. So just very, very blessed for that. So, but yeah. And so I think when you start working with these energies, all kinds of fun things and opportunities bubble up, and that's the thing. They want to keep us in fear. They want to keep us separated. They want us hating on each other. So for me, I'm kind of like, if we just do random acts of silliness and kindness, and I'm not talking about this toxic bullshit stuff, I'm talking about even just privately for yourself, having a little bit of fun every day, giving yourself a treat. When was the last time you skipped? Do something stupid and silly and have some fun, and, do something nice for somebody, because if we kind of niceness begets niceness, and kindness begets kindness. And it's really, really a powerful act when it's hard to be kind, but you stay in that frequency. When it's hard to have joy, but you stay in that frequency. But I mean, I'm talking for real. Like depression is hard, and it's a very true and very real thing, and it's very, very difficult. But even just trying to get to that frequency, trying to remember the frequency of joy, going out, hugging a tree, getting in some sunlight and stuff like that, if you can, all these things, because they're trying to diminish us, they're trying to dim our light, and we have to work our best to get past that, so that, that we do have love for each other, love and joy and happiness, because they want us separated and they want us in fear, because divide and conquer, then they can keep controlling us. It's just another form of control. So, check in on people, help people, be kind, all these kinds of things. So that's part of the prison break too. Bring others with you,
That's an awesome way to put it. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So take the group, be the leader, be the scout leader, blah, blah, blah. But it's very true, and, just look at all the programming, and especially, and if you don't believe me, go to Europe or something, get out of this country and see how things are, see how like their TV programming is. They don't have all these pharmaceutical, commercials that like are going to kill you. You're trying to do something for your eyeballs, but your heart's going to stop and you're going to bleed out your butt. And like, how is that good?
It's funny. I'm actually on a British TV show or radio show. It's called Dark Mirror Radio. It's a podcast. It's on every Monday. I missed today's episode though because I was at a doctor. But they make fun of me about our food like every time I see them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Every, they actually get kicks because they're like ask me to send them stuff, and they're like, oh, everybody loves the candy from America, and but it's poison. We just
Yeah.
love reading the labels.
Oh, I know. It's shocking. And I mean, there's just so many chemicals. And I mean, like, it's really hard to stay healthy. But that's another thing, too, the culling of America. I mean, you, you can't just sit. I mean, I know they're delicious. These chemicals are delicious and they're there to addict you. It's another form of like some kind of crack. You know what I mean? It's not healthy
Right?
for
I
you.
feel like it's not the same. Everything tastes different too in the past few years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, clearly recipes have changed just since the 90s drastically.
Oh,
I don't
for
know.
sure.
I hear all this stuff about all these chemicals that are going to be banned starting in California and moving on. So maybe
That'd
we
be
will
great.
become like Europe, but I
That
don't
would be
know.
great. Well, we need to get rid of the fluoride in our water. That's the first thing. And everybody, rise
Well,
up. We got to get rid of that crap. That's for sure.
capitalism keeps us kind of in a lockdown with all that. And yeah, the whole fluoride thing too. What a scam. We have this
Mhm.
chemical that we can't get rid of, so we'll just give it to them. Just
Well,
sell it
yeah.
back to
Well,
them.
a toothpaste tube says spit it out, and it's like, well, ugh, spit it out. And my husband was just at the dentist today and he goes, you'd be proud of me. I was thinking of you because they wanted to give me this fluoride treatment. They were going to charge me $57. And I thought of you. So I decided not to do it. But then the girl said, no, this is different fluoride. It's better. It's safer. And I'm like, did you just hear what she said? It's safer. She's just admitting to you it's not safe.
It's
Why would you do
safer.
it? It's safer. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't know. But see, as far as I'm concerned, it's a drug and they're drugging us without our will, right?
That too, it's just mind-boggling. If you, I'm kind of a bit of a little bit of a history buff, but like back when you're like a little bit before your dad was like your probably your grandpa, the dentist cut your hair. He
Oh,
also
yeah,
signed your shoes and cut your hair, and now he's a doctor.
right.
You're like,
Yeah, I know.
how did that happen?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's true because they had the barber pole. Yeah, the barber pole. It was barber and the dentist because the red
Dentist
stripe
and
was
yeah.
the blood, you know. Yeah, all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I mean, seriously, because I'm kind of like, if I want to bleach my hair, am I going to drink it? No, I'm going to apply it to my hair. If it was truly good for your teeth, you would do an application. Why are we putting it in water when the dentist all like, oh, spit it out, spit it out. It's not good for you to, yeah, but put it in water. That's that disconnect again. Doesn't make sense. And it costs money to do it. And they're like, oh, the teeth are better now and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, Yeah, but Alzheimer's is on the rise too, and there's
I
there's a
think
lot
that's
of
a major problem that like the future generations really need to dive into is how we're treating water in America, especially. I think it's starting to break down. We know there's an effect with all the pharmaceuticals are not getting purified out.
oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, so we're
look at
drinking the little blue pill, there's
right.
everything's in there. Yeah, it's toxic. And that's why like being in Norway, like one of the first things they told you is like, which was so weird. Well, because I'm sure they're used to dealing with Americans. They're like, you can drink the water out of the tap. It's pure water. It's good water. It's healthy. It's spring water. I'm like, what? And they're like, all the water is spring water. Like you're showering in it. Why do you think it's one of the happiest places in the world? Because they've got good water. They're drinking good water. They're
Yeah.
showering in it. Their clothes are in it. They don't have all these
Well,
chemicals that we do. You know what I mean?
their government's not trying to kill them either.
Right, right. Well, they only have what, 2 million people on in their whole country. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like crazy. I know. But anyway, blah blah blah. So, all right.
I'm jealous.
Anything?
Norway sounds awesome. I have to
Oh,
check that
it
out
is.
someday.
It's very expensive there. It's very, 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 very expensive. So, like literally, because most of their beer is like 3-2 beer, and like this was back in 2018 when I went, so it's probably more expensive now. But you would buy a can of like 3-2 beer. You buy it at the grocery store. They only sell it from like 3 in the afternoon till like 6 in the evening. They only sell it for a couple
Oh,
hours.
wow.
I know. Anyway, and that one can of beer back then was like $7-8 for one can of 3-2 beer. Booze is very expensive there. Like a $7 bottle of wine here would be like $35 over there or something like that. It's just crazy. That's why people make a lot of people make their own hooch there. Yeah.
People
So
do that
anyway.
here too.
Oh yeah, but not like there. Not like there. Yeah, it's a lot different there. And they have like the government runs the liquor store. So it's called a monopoly, and it's called a monopoly, and it is a monopoly, and it's run by the government, and it's only open so many hours and not very often and all this kind of stuff. And it's very high taxes on it, on the booze.
There's no bars or
They have bars, and everything is very expensive at the bars too. But here's the thing. The alcohol in the country pays for their health care, so they have no health care costs.
oh yeah.
Yep.
Wow, my state could probably cover half the country if we did
I
that.
know. Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be awesome? And so that's why, I even said that to some of the Norwegians. I'm like, yeah, but that beer is paying for your health care and stuff like that. And they're like, God, I never really thought of it that way. And I'm like, how do you not? I don't know. But they're just the happiest. They're very sweet and innocent people because they don't have this propaganda that we have. They don't have, our culture is so hard hitting. It's just, I literally think every child in the United States needs to be sent away and then come back. Like for 1 year, you get sent away to go look at what other countries are like, because then you would understand how toxic this community is. And
Yeah,
it's very sad. It's so sad. I mean, all these kids on these phones and all these kids hating on other kids and stuff like that and being mean and bullies. And then other kids are feeling suicidal and stuff like that. You don't have that over there. I mean, and that's why people shoot up everybody. I mean, why wouldn't you? This place is so toxic around here. And that's the other thing is like, we have to start to control that. This is that divide and conquer, keeping us in fear. Of course, people are shooting up people and be like, this is the culture they've created. And we have to fight against that. We have to fight against that and keep it green. So,
right. I think a big part of it too is our country needs to look at mental health.
yeah,
There isn't really a weapon issue. There's a mental health crisis, and it's been
it's
going
huge.
on for
That's exactly
generations.
it. And they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So, that's a lot there. Yeah. We have to worry about ourselves first before these aliens who are controlling us
Right.
anyway, right?
I
What do
mean,
they care?
they probably
We're
lock
just
the doors and they'll fly by. Yep. Getting too
exactly.
close to Americans.
Yeah, like, no, keep
Lock the
going.
doors.
No, no. Yeah. Oh, that's Earth. You don't want to go there.
We'll get gas on the moon.
Exactly. Yeah. Mars is way more fun. But anyway. Oh my gosh. So, any other questions?
I think that's good for right now.
Okay. Well, at some
About an
time we
hour
could
and a
talk
half in.
about I could come back. We could talk about Bigfoot or wormholes or I don't know, holograms,
Oh,
angels,
you've
ghosts.
had you've had a Bigfoot experience?
Yeah. Well, I'm suspicious of it. I think it was a Bigfoot because it was real brief. We were
I
out
promise I
start
mostly have to talk about it.
Okay, well, yeah, we were out. I was in Girl Scouts. We were out stargazing. I mean, I was camping. So we're at Girl Scout camp way up north, Minnesota, Marcel, Minnesota. But then that's camp. But then we go on a canoe trip for a couple days. So you're camping away from camping, right? Anyway,
Mhm.
um, so we're way up there and we're just stargazing. That's what you do. Anyway, this particular night, there's UFOs up there. Typically, if I'm out there watching, I don't know if it's just me, but there's usually, we would see, we could see Sputnik. This is back in the day when there was like one satellite and you could time it and you could just watch it going across and be 45 minutes later or whatever it was, it would come back, la la la. Anyway, but then, we're watching this, ship doing this. And it's like, oh my God, you see us. And we were all seeing it. All of the girls were all, like 20 of us seeing the same thing at the same time, blah, blah. But anyway, this one particular night, way off in the distance on this lake, we heard like this weird screaming, this scream that didn't sound like anything really from the planet. Because, you can tell when it's like a strange animal or a hurt animal, this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It wasn't that. So it was way off. And then the next thing, like too quickly, like the next thing, it was screaming from another area and it's getting closer. But the space between where it was and where it is and the time and all this kind of stuff made no sense, like way too quick. Like nothing normal could go that quickly, right? Like it was like boop, boop. Like a car couldn't have done it. But this is dense woods. And literally, if it was an animal, you'd hear things. A lot of times you hear breaking of limbs, you hear things off, you hear a ruckus, leaves, you hear stuff, especially when there's a lake, things travel on the water.
Mhm.
Nuh-uh. It's like boom, boom. And it just kept getting closer and making this horrific scream, but getting really close to us that everybody like just jumped up and went to our tents as if canvas is going to protect you, right? Like in our imaginary world, zipper, like, oh, now I'm safe, okay, whatever. And we literally just ditched the fire. We just ditched everything. We just ran to our tents. Okay. And I was a precocious child, meaning precocious growth is like where you're taller than most children. That's what they call it. And so the girls, that I was with were way smaller than me. I super outweighed them. And I'm sleeping in the middle of the tent, and then there's one on either side of me. I remember all that. And I know that there's no way they could drag me out. I'm a very light sleeper. They couldn't pull a prank on me if they tried, right? Because I'm big. I'm this big German Norwegian girl, and they're all like little skinny little pipsqueaks. So, and the tent that we used to use was a 5-point tent that I don't think the Army ever really used it. You needed like 4 trees to loft it up to, and then one in the middle. It's kind of
Mhm.
crazy. But anyway, um,
And then
it
it's got
didn't have
like
poles.
individual walls, right? That kind of go.
Well, it was green, but there was no poles. You didn't use poles. You had to have like a couple of trees with some good branches, and then you would take the 4 corners and then pull, throw that rope up there and pull it up and then tie up in the center to get the center. There were no poles. It really was genius. But the problem is you have to be camping where there's trees, otherwise you're screwed. So it's kind of funny. But on this night, everybody was afraid, right? So nobody was going to be leaving that tent. Nobody went and brushed their teeth or washed up or peed. If they did, it was probably in their pants or whatever. But I mean, like, nobody was going to be making jokes that night, right? Because we're all afraid. And the tent has a lip on it about this big, so like there's the floor and there was a tent, the zippers came like this, so kind of like a upside down T. Well, I wake up in the morning and I wake up and it's like this, like the canvas of the tent is right in my face. And for a minute there, I'm like, how can the wall be right on my face? Because, like, where's my body? Am I just a head? Have I been decapitated or something? But it's the zipper. It's right here. And so the zipper is around my neck. And my head is in the tent. And my body is outside. And it's in my sleeping bag. And the other two girls are just sleeping and blah, 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 blah. They're dead to the world. They have no clue. And I look at them because, I'm like where their feet are. I'm like, hey, you guys. And I can't open the tent because my arms are in my my sleeping bag, so I needed help. They had to unzip me. And they didn't do that. So my whole thinking is because of what and who and how it was moving and that there were UFOs and my connection to the UFOs and stuff, I really suspect that could have been a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or somebody of that nature came and played with me, had a good time. And I hear some of the troops are very jocular. So I think this was them being funny. They just stuck my head in the tent. Because there's no other explanation how I got out there.
Right.
It just couldn't happen. Yeah, it just couldn't happen, and nobody would do that. And everybody the next morning was very sad, or kind of like the energy was very quiet. I think everybody was still disturbed and thinking about what happened the night before. And then I tried to ask, like, did anybody playing jokes? And they just kind of would look at me like, what are you talking about? Like, who was joking last night? Nobody. So, like when I got older and heard that Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever you want to call him plays games on some people, it just kind of made sense to me. I'm like, okay, I have a connection to aliens. I think that they do too. I think they work in a frequency field as well. And in fact, years ago, this is probably, I'm going to say maybe the late 1990s, mid to late 1990s, there was one of these Bigfoot, not a documentary, but a TV show or something like that. They were kind of doing some research. This is one of those researcher ones. And I think they're they might even be the same ones that have a show still, but this is a long time ago. And so it was the end of the TV show and they're in the woods and the guy's on a dirt trail and he's standing in front of the woods and he's like, we just never saw a Bigfoot, that's too bad or whatever. And I was like, dude, behind you. Because there was like a dysplasia, kind of like Predator, in Predator, like you couldn't see him, but you could just see like this figure. Seriously, it was happening right behind the guy. Like it was almost as if Bigfoot was sitting there waving. And I'm like, didn't anybody in production, the editors or anybody see this anomaly happening on the film? They didn't notice that? I'm like, but I'm noticing it. So I don't think it was just a special trick of my eye. It was literally there on the TV. I think I tape recorded it, but my TiVo box, it's died years ago, so I don't have evidence of it. But yeah, I could see that the poor guys, they thought they didn't see Bigfoot, but I guarantee you, Bigfoot was standing right behind them. It was kind of funny. So I don't know. That's the only thing I know. Yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with because we don't know what that animal or what that thing was. And it did not have an earthly tone or sound at all. It was very frightening. So yeah, we don't know what, and it moved way too quick. Like I said, without a sound. I do know sometimes people say Bigfoot, will bang things and stuff like that. I don't recall them banging sticks. We were all just very much focused on the voice, but we were listening. And like I said, we were listening to like, oh, could it be a moose or something entangled with horns or this or that or what? No. And the thickness of the woods and how quickly this beast, whatever it was, traveled, like it couldn't have been even an owl or, it couldn't, there's no explanation for that one. So it very much scared us all. Anyway, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. It's as close as I got to Bigfoot. So
That's still cool.
yeah, I don't
But
know what happened.
they messed with you like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny, but yeah, I couldn't get out of the situation because my arms were stuck in my sleeping bag. So obviously I know I didn't do it to myself. And I know the girls I was with couldn't have done it to me either. Nobody else could have like dragged me out because it really would have disturbed the tent. Everybody would have woken up because, like I said, there was a lip there. It's a lot to do if you've ever gone camping. You usually know if somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's very disturbing, so anyhow. So yeah, the fact that nobody woke up, not even me, how did I get out there? Well, so somebody was messing with me.
Right.
Yeah. So who knows? Yeah. The world may never know. But yeah.
Did any of the counselors hear the screaming?
Oh yeah, no, we were all there sitting there. Yeah. All the counselors, I think there was like 4 or 5 counselors and then us kids and stuff like that. And we all ran. Yeah, we all just jumped up and screamed and ran for it. Yeah, no, they heard it too. Oh yeah, they were frightened and they knew it wasn't a normal sound of anything. And that's why the energy that next morning was very low, because even the adults, were kind of like, what the hell happened last night? But we're not even going to talk about it, kind of a thing. Because it was kind of scary. It was scary. I'll just say.
Yeah. Did you mention to them about how you woke up?
Yeah. Well, and we all kind of thought, they even agreed that, well, okay, it could be Bigfoot. I mean, like that was just too weird. And everybody agreed, like nobody was going to be playing a prank on someone. Because legit, like when you're a Girl Scout, and especially, God, this is almost too much. Like how you have to hoist your food up. You hoist your food up like for the bears so they don't get that and all that kind of stuff. And, a lot of girls would be, starting to mense and stuff like that too, which could attract animals. So a lot of young girls don't want to go outside of their tents at night because a bear or any kind of a predator could be out there and could hurt you. So we were all pretty much, when you're camping like that and we were young, a lot of girls, you're not going out and goofing around because, the threat is real, and you're in the middle of nowhere. There were no cell phones back then. We were unarmed. Yeah. So, we took it all very, very seriously. So nobody would be out goofing around, that kind of stuff. It wasn't that kind of a, we were more serious campers. Anyway, we were Girl Scouts, So not like you screwy Boy Scouts were,
Now it's not even either. I think it's just the Scouts and they're together.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Whatever.
Right?
I don't know. All I know is like when my boys were growing up, because for me, Girl Scouts, it was very structured or something like that. And so there was a church nearby, and then like one particular night would be like Scouts night or something. So I accidentally walked into a room and there's all these Girl Scouts. The girls are politely sitting on the floor looking up at the Scout leader. And then I found the Boy Scout rooms and the boys were just running like a bunch of idiots with their heads cut off. I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of funny.
Oh, I think it all depends who your Scout leader was, because some of ours were very much old school, just you boys need discipline.
Oh, really?
And then other ones were like, oh, here we go. I'm going to go hang out with your dad. Here's a pocket knife in a car.
Oh, yeah, to make your little racer car, box car, those box car things. What a joke was that? I mean, how many dads ended up doing that thing? Like what my son. Well, yeah, some of them were pretty cool. And then they started having the preformed ones. But there was one kid when my older son was in Scouts. He legit, you knew he did this because he put the wheels on and he didn't carve it at all. It was just the block. And we were all cheering for it. Block, 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 block. It was like, yeah, like you knew that kid did it, like there was no dad doing anything there. And the kid just put the wheels on. He's like, there's my thing,
That's my car.
That's my car. Block, it's hilarious. So I thought that was pretty ingenious anyway. I'm sure the scouts were like, you're supposed to do all these other things, but whatever. Hilarious. Good times. Anyway, scouting's good. So anyway. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, is it time? Do I need to let you go? Oh, yeah. I
Probably.
think we've kind of overwhelmed. I should probably get going. Well, anyway,
That's
we
all
could
right.
talk about wormholes next time and holograms and all that kind of stuff if you want to get into all
Love
of those.
to, definitely.
Yeah. Or ghosts. Yeah, and all that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
actually
stuff.
used to be a paranormal investigator. I actually was employed in Illinois.
That's cool.
I have some cool stories too.
Yeah,
Went to a lot of the old battle sites, which was cool.
Ooh, wow. That's kind of
The
crazy.
cool thing was I got to investigate one of the areas where Lincoln actually was like doing like battle plans during the Civil War.
Ooh.
That was cool.
That's cool. That'd be cool because, and even talking about trees and stuff, I got other stories. But anyway, I should let you go. But thank you so much. And thank you for your watchers or listeners, whatever, your audience for all that. And please get my book. Please support me. Leave a review, blah, 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 all that good stuff. And hopefully I'll see all of you guys around in the social media world. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Well, good night, everybody. I gotta go night-night. It's past my bedtime. Good night, you guys. Thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Okay. Bye.